a special live stream for everyone. We're here with our fellow brother in arms here, Evan from Radio Made Easy. Now, this stream we're going to dedicate, this is the first dual stream that we've done together. I don't have a lot to share with as far as the technical side of this. I kind of came to Evan and Overton and the guys with an idea. And that idea was if we could put together a turnkey, simple radio solution for guys that need communications. And that means pretty much all of us. So we did kind of a soft opening last week or with the live stream, but this we can really get into the weeds. We've got an hour and a half set aside for this. We're going to get into all of the technical details. Evan, would you introduce yourself, a little bit of your background, how you got into radios, and then we can get into the kit and then answer any questions that folks are going to have on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And my name's Evan. I'm from Radio Made Easy. I own and operate this small company out of North Carolina. And I got into comms and radio stuff probably 5 or 6 years ago. I've always been intrigued by it. I worked with a guy at a corporate job who was a ham, and he intrigued me, but he wasn't very helpful. And he was kind of cooler than cool, too cool for me to be helped. And so I embarked on like most things in the self-taught realm, and got up to speed. Enjoyed it, got kind of the most I wanted to know, didn't take it any further for a while. And then I ended up getting involved in tactical training through Tactical Response and a local crew here in North Carolina, Prepared Patriot. And through that, they needed a comms guy. They needed somebody to teach people how to get their gear set up, how to get it wired, how it works, how to program everything. So I just became the de facto comms guy. And kind of went on from there to monetize it, make it into this company, really with the theme being making it easy for the common man to use this, lowering the barrier to entry.
I'm grateful to have you here. This has been a real problem for a lot of dudes. I think that might be even watching and can relate to this. We've all understood the importance of, well, we can see the importance that the military puts on communications.
Yep.
And that should tell us something right there. I know for me, I knew it was important to have, but when I got online and started trying to look around and source things, I've never been so overwhelmed by a particular topic as this.
Yep.
In addition to that, when I went online to try to find some help for it, I ran into kind of what you were talking about, which was gatekeeping by people that were maybe overly techie, that wasn't very helpful, and just went too far into the weeds for me. I ended up tried to put my own kit together, which was nothing more than just a handful of bowfangs and a little pouch, but it worked so well because it was a solution to a problem, but less than ideal. When this concept came up, a couple months ago, some guys stepped up, Evan stepped up and said, hey, we can do this, and we put together a turnkey kit where I'm going to do all the work, the programming, and you guys can have something that's ready to go. And that's kind of what we're discussing today. So if you're just joining us, just a quick overview before we get into the specifics of the kit. Evan has put this together we've kind of brainstormed, and we put together a 3 radio kit. Now, what this is going to give you is it's going to give you the ability to have 3 radios that are all programmed alike. And not only that, but programmed to your area. One of the services, the things that Evan's doing that takes a lot of time, is that when he receives your order, he's going to program this to frequencies that are in your area. So you'll be able to, can you expand upon that? Which frequencies do you think are important, or what are you going to be adding to folks' radios?
Yeah, a lot like you experienced, that can be the biggest barrier. So it's part of what inspired me to start the company, is I met dozens, if not hundreds of people that said, yeah, I already have those. They're just in a box. I took them out and I tried and I gave up. And I don't know if it's intentional or if it's partly just a lack of being out of touch with the common man, maybe a combination of both, right? But a lot of the beginner-friendly videos are not actually beginner-friendly. They assume a starting point. That just is not the case for most of us. So with the programming, this is the true easy button of the package, right? Like everything else you could buy. Well, no, you couldn't buy all of it, but you could get something like it. But the programming is the obstacle because it's what makes the radio work with another radio. So um, the considerations I have, number one, I have frequencies in here that can be used within the rules without a license, right? And that's important because everyone is not interested in getting a ham radio license, nor should they be. I'm under no illusion that that is accessible to the common person who's just trying to be able to talk to somebody across the field, right? So there's that. There are some expanded frequencies that during an emergency you could use for repeaters in your area. So if you're not aware, there are repeaters within probably 30 miles of you or less that you could access to be able to listen to conversations happening between hams and use those for emergencies, even if you're not a ham. So that's within the rules for you to be able to listen. And you can use it if you're either licensed or in an emergency. Now, that's a
Right.
huge benefit because you don't have to go figure out, okay, where do I find these repeaters? How do I load them into my radio? Which ones are compatible with my radio? Which ones aren't? That's all taken care of for you. And then at the end, we put in the NOAA weather stations. So across the entire country, the National Weather Service has broadcast in the VHF band for emergency weather pretty much anywhere in the country. So you'll be able to hear tornado warnings, hurricane warnings, earthquake, severe weather alerts, that sort of thing. Almost as good, if not better, than what you would get from television or broadcast radio. So really cool to have that as well. All that comes specific to you. So it's not a generic programming. Literally per order, I pull up your address that you've provided. I do a radius search to fit the maximum. I fill the entire radio top to bottom with in distance order from your address of what's useful for you. So they'll all match identically too. So if you go to frequency or memory number 15 on all three radios, they're all going to be on the same frequency. You don't have to piddle with accidentally entering in the wrong frequency or something like that. They're going to work out of the box.
That's a big thing for me. Someone who is when I first bought mine, I bought the Baofangs and the cable, downloaded chirps and all of that. And to be honest with you, it took the better part of a morning to just kind of figure that out. And then it was just something that I could do it, but would I do it in the future? When I went back a year later, I'd already forgotten that stuff and where's the cable. So that's really important. To build on what you're saying, one of the best ways to get local information and how we do it is if we're going to be in a situation where it's going to be dry, we know we're going to have wildland fires, or even at nighttime. What I find that we're doing with these things is that we're just scanning and we're just
Yep.
scanning the emergency frequencies, and we're the very first ones to know. I know immediately when there's a wildland fire. I know immediately if someone has called 911 to a domestic abuse for a neighborhood or someone's house is on fire. We're hearing that really, really quickly. And that's having to jump on that and getting advanced information like that is so important. Wouldn't you agree, Evan?
Absolutely. If you live in an area like yourself that the police or fire or EMS are still on analog frequencies, then that's available. Now, unfortunately, the majority of urban areas are going to be on encrypted digital, and that's not possible with this radio. But you can still glean a lot just from listening to local traffic, even on the ham repeaters. There's people talking about what's going on and having conversations about what's happening at their house or in their neighborhood. And it's a critical aspect of communications in general is just listening is where all the information is gleaned. You rarely need to transmit to obtain information, right? So you can learn a lot just through listening.
That's
Um,
right. That's right. Okay. Well, let's get into the kit. There's going to be some folks that have not seen this before. Now, this
okay.
is really, for me, this is a labor of love. Evan has got a small business. He's done an extraordinary job with putting this together, and he's just basically taken my concept. What I've found is that your buddies are not going to be prepared. Maybe one out of 50 of them are actually going to have a radio. Actually, probably one out of 1,000. So what this gives you the ability to do is to hand a radio to someone. It doesn't do you any good to have the fastest, greatest, latest high-speed Motorola combat radio or a Harris or something like that if your buddies don't have one. It's not of any value whatsoever. I see guys all the time with tactical loadouts. They've got their push to talk, they've got their Peltors, and then I ask them, who are you talking to? Well, the idea is, well, maybe I'll plug in a frequency if
Right.
someday that comes in handy. Is that actually going to happen? And do you know how to put a frequency in? Because I don't, and no one I knows how, no one that I know how knows how to do it. So the 3 radio kit is really a nice solution. It's more than 2 because it gives you an option. You can have one, leave one with your wife. You can leave one, you can give one out to a couple buddies. You can push, everything's pre-programmed. They don't need to know anything other than just push the button and talk. And that's basically it. So this is the kit. Can you give us the landing page for the pre-order, Evan, real quick before I get into it? Because these are
Yeah,
going to be gone pretty soon. This is going to be this is a limited run, and we're almost halfway through.
that's right. So we created the landing page prohoradio.com just to make it easy to get there. So PROHO radio.com. You can also get there through my website, radiomadeeasy.com, but that'll take you straight to the product.
Okay, so the kit consists of, now, everything in here, Evan, is sourced to be as good as possible. Are they
That's right.
USA made radios and stuff? No, there's a price barrier. We talked this morning about there are some guys that want to go up to the next level. They want a little bit higher quality, maybe something that's waterproof radio. That's a small group of guys that have the means, the ability to do that. We've talked about maybe making that available. They'll be able to interchange. You'll be able to talk back and forth to the Bofang. That's not a problem. They don't all have to be the same. But if you want something that's ready to go and you just don't want to have to think about it, this is achievable. So
That's right.
what Evan's put together for us is, this is a one-off bag. Can you tell me where this comes from and how this is unique to us?
Yeah, so a legendary gear builder in the nylon tactical world is Special Operations Equipment. John Willis is a personal friend and mentor of mine, and he does not build custom stuff. He doesn't, as a rule. But he's building this bag for this project, and so we took a concept from actually his 500 milliliter IV bag that he builds as a medic bag that's carried by special forces medics, and he converted it to this. It was close to the right footprint. So Special Operations Equipment, it's all made in Tennessee. I was there on Friday. I saw the 8 ladies there that are paid a living wage to live in Tennessee to build this gear and running their sewing machines in a little small town that has no other economic engine. They are the reason that town has a post office. They put more than $1 million a year through that post office. So he built the bag. I was there with him prototyping it. It fits these 3 radios like a glove. If you look at that zipper, that is the size of zipper you might find on a massive duffel bag or a book bag or a
Right.
high quality jacket. That is not typically the size or quality zipper you'd find on a small radio pouch, right? The elastic, there's scuba webbing in here to add rigidity. There's a pocket inside. All of that represents human labor, right? Like, you're not typically thinking about that when you look at a sewn good. It's typically either automated or built by slave labor. This is not that way. I'm really proud of it. I think John did an awesome job. Its fit and finish is excellent. It'll outlive you. You can throw a patch on the front, which is important for this project. We're going to have that special patch, and it's a no nonsense, no frills, do what it was designed to do pouch, or carrying case, maybe you might call it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of kit. The quality is right, is immediate as soon as you touch it and feel it. There's something about, like, I notice the same feeling. I get there's the same, I guess, the quality level that I've experienced from like companies like what's the big wildland pack? that makes the wildland packs down there in Montana, Bozeman. Um, Thun- uh, who makes the wildland packs? I can't remember. Thunder, the old Dana Design. You know who I'm talking about?
I don't. I'm sorry. I know Mystery Ranch is
Mystery
about.
Ranch. Thank you,
Okay.
Mystery
Is
Ranch.
that who you mean? Okay.
Mystery Ranch has two lines, and I have several of their products. They have their berry compliant stuff, which is all USA made, that they make in state. I have both. I have their berry compliant stuff, and I have some of their stuff that's made overseas, which is good as well. I don't have any complaints about it, but there's no comparison. As soon as you feel it and touch it, it has that custom feel to it. A very nice pouch, and I like the fact that you didn't wait. You guys didn't waste, didn't make it any bigger than it needs to be.
Right.
Dealing with gear, like when you get night vision goggles and a few extra magazines, I mean, to have a big bulky radio pack just wouldn't be an option, and this is just couldn't be better.
I think you mentioned when it's too big, you're tempted to try and add more
Overstuff it.
things. So,
Yeah,
there's no chance of that. You do have enough room in that front pocket to put your reference cards and your chargers and maybe a few odds and ends, but that's it. It's really purpose built for just what's included in the kit. I'm super happy with it.
So, and just a quick side note, we talked about, now I'm going to leave this up. I'm going to leave this up to Evan, but you said we were originally going to cap this at 100 units, and our
Right.
initial last week we had about half of those gone. We haven't even done a video on this yet. There was
Right.
such demand on this. You said that you might be comfortable extending that a little bit. What are you thinking? How many units can we make available, and when will be the deadline?
Yes, I think what we've landed on is we're going to stick with 100 kits for our original guaranteed 6 to 8 week pre-order. So if you get it in the first 100, you can expect it then. But because of the enthusiasm and we hadn't even launched it yet, I got in touch with John. He's willing to build more bags and more pouches for us up to however many we need. So we're going to leave it open through Memorial Day, through the holiday. And it might take us a couple extra weeks to get it to those later orders, but we're not going to put a cap on it. I've got pipeline to get all the other equipment in or all the other materials in, so that won't be an issue. And I really just want to make sure anyone that wants one is able to get one, because it's a special thing, probably not going to be ever made again. So it's an exciting opportunity.
Yeah, and you know, regarding the delays, people kind of get into, we get spoiled by Amazon. We expect stuff to come really quickly. One thing that we discussed this morning, where is the bottleneck? What's the problem? And like one thing that Evan said was the antennas are handmade. Is that the
That's right.
bottleneck that we're dealing with? So just to kind of put a point on it, that Evan has sourced the best things possible. That this is going to be a good kit, and he's put his name on it. He's put my name on it, and we're putting the best stuff that he could find in it. So.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
free radio
everything's a
kit.
compromise for sure. Everything can't be sourced like the radios. They would cost 10 times more, if not more than that, if they were USA made. But basically, everything else I've sourced either the best quality or the best version of what's available. So something you run into accessories with these radios is a lot of them are either fake or knockoff of the already cheap thing.
Is that right?
So you can buy an extended battery, right, that's not really extended at all. And it has literally nothing inside of it other than the original battery, or a USB cable that literally splits in half as soon as you attempt to use it.
Yep.
I have sorted through all that. Now, some of that stuff is still relatively inexpensive and low quality, but it's the best that you can get with that radio. It solves the problem. Now, some of the other components are not that way. The antenna is the best dual band mobile or dual band handheld antenna, I believe, on the market. It's USA made in Utah from a real person who is an enthusiast of this community, this hobby, and I sourced those from him, and on we could go. So it's the best. It's kind of the Hall of Fame setup.
Yeah. Yeah, and a real labor of love to make your own antennas and such. That's someone that's really dedicated.
a quick note on that. So you're not wrong. It is a labor of love. The guy who builds them, his name's Richard. He owns Signal Stuff. Signal Stuff is the leading supporter of hamstudy.org. So for people interested in getting their ham license, the best way to get it is through hamstudy.org. It's a study system. There's an app and a website, and he built that. So the antennas directly support that. So what I love is all the flack I get from ham guys that I shouldn't be helping average Joes. It's like I've put more money in supporting the ham community. I've ordered probably thousands of these antennas that directly support the system that enables people to get licensed. So what have you done, right? So that's a little glimmer of hope for that.
Well, let's get into the radios really quickly. I want to take a couple of super chats. We have a super chat from our friend Mr. Jason Barr, who says East Coast beard versus the West Coast beard. I have to say that the East Coast beard is looking a little bit better. Thank you, brother.
Yeah,
and Brandon Aga has been, Jason Barr, excuse me, I did that twice. Jason Barr writes, once you have one SOE bag, that's all you will buy. Yeah, I agree with that. You know what? I'd heard of SOE bags before, but I never owned any. And right after I spoke with you last week, Overton called me and said, hey, the guys over at SOE they do a live stream where they walk through their facility. You could actually, this is the first time I actually watched the sewing machine where these were sewn, and from the owner, talking about these things. And how cool is that to be able to reach out and talk to the guy that's making your gear? It gives me the fizz all the way around. I'm really proud that we're able to do that, and I'm really grateful that he was able to adapt this for us. That's just not something that would be done for a lot of guys.
Yep, he's the real deal, and the reason he doesn't often do custom stuff is they have a limited labor supply there where they are. They're in a small town, and it's hard to find people to work. And they would love to build custom all the time, but I mean, you have limited people, and you sell everything you make already. So it's hard to get in there to get special stuff. So we're really privileged to have that chance.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for that. Let's go over the radios. You've done some specific modifications to these. Now, this is just a sample of one. All three will be like this. But first off, the first thing I noticed was you've put an antenna adapter. Why are we not using the antenna that comes with the Bofang? And what's the advantage of this?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's probably the key upgrade to this radio. All your signal comes in and out of your antenna on a radio. So if that isn't quality, nothing else down the line will be quality. So that antenna costs as much as the radio for me. So when I purchase those radios, it actually costs more, a few dollars more than the radio. So to answer the question about the adapter, that is a critical change that I believe should be made to every radio, is you should adapt it to what's called BNC. So that's the connector you have there on the top, that silver adapter. So it's converting.
That's a quarter turn connector. So these radios, some guys would be familiar with it, but they have a long thread to thread them on there.
It takes about 6 or 7 turns, right? So imagine the ability to fail if you cross thread, or if you pull that off and look inside, you'll see a tiny metal copper pin, the center pin. That's a very fragile piece. That's actually what connects to the antenna. That's the actual radiating element of the antenna. It has a limited lifespan of about 1,000 connections. With this, if you reduce the risk of cross-threading, right, you have that quarter turn that aligns from the posts, and you now have a wearable component. So instead of replacing the whole radio, if I wear out that connector, I spend $5 and swap a new one on.
Yeah,
that's all beautiful, but the real beauty is in the modularity. So
compatibility.
Exactly. So now I can universalize. If I buy 10 different kinds of radios, they all have BNC. And now any accessory I buy, a mobile antenna, a throw-up antenna, a stubby, a whip, anything, a wearable, they all interface with the same connection. So I know they're going to work with all my radios. Let's say the guy who says this is not where he wants to stop, right? Like a year from now, he says, all right, I want a big boy radio. I want, a Yaesu VX6R, or I want a FT5DR or something cool. Adapt it to BNC. All the stuff you bought for the Baofeng now moves over to your high-end radio, completely compatible. So that's one of the essential reasons.
And that's one of the best features of this is that this is a big investment. There's a lot of good equipment in here, and it would be a shame that many times what happens to me, I've always made the mistake of when I got into something, I went cheap. And then I find that, okay, I like this hobby, or I like this particular thing. Well, now I got to go buy everything again because cheap gear and expensive gear are rarely compatible.
That's right.
Perfect example of photography, video stuff. I've bought it 3 times, from
Yep.
consumer grade to prosumer to ultimately to professional gear. What's cool about this system, the way that Evan's put it together, is that we have the best of the best. As he said, the dream kit right here. The only thing you could really do to upgrade this is we could upgrade to a higher quality radio, but your antennas, your pouch, all of the accessories that you're purchasing here are going to go right into your professional grade radio, and you're not going to have to buy anything over again.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that are specific to the radio, like the USB charger, but the big stuff is modular, and especially if you add some of the accessories I carry, you're going to get compatibility with those too. So I know you reviewed some of those in your unboxing, but you're not locked in. Like you mentioned cameras. It would be like if you buy only crop body lenses, right, and you get all built into that Canon crop body, and then you go full frame. Well, now I've got to rebuy all my lenses. Some of those are thousands of dollars, and they don't work on full frame camera. We're trying our best not to do that. Some things you have to do that, but if there's a place we can make it future proof, I'm doing that for you. I'm taking the thinking out of it.
Just being modular, just kind of an example, one of the things, like having a whip antenna in some applications, this is not going to be ideal if you're going to be in the woods and such. So that's why I see a lot of guys online that will have something more like this that can be woven through gear or equipment, to be able to upgrade and to change this now with that quarter turn accessory. Now we can accept all of that cool high speed stuff that the military guys are using, right? Just because of this adapter.
And that right there is one of the key reasons you want BNC. Is if you have that antenna woven on your plate carrier, imagine having to spin that on 6 or 7 revolutions of thread.
Right.
And then to get it back off 6 or 7 more. And if you have a headset attached, you have to take all that off to be able to spin the radio on and off, right? So BNC, push and quarter turn to get on or off. It's beautiful. So
it is beautiful.
Yet another reason to go with BNC.
Yeah, it's a great connector. Well, in addition to the antenna, so we have the radio that many guys are going to be familiar with, the UV5R Plus. That's kind of the ubiquitous Baofeng what I see most guys using. What's been one big problem I was having with my radios, or a real inconvenience, was I didn't have the ability to USB charge them. So, and I'm not the best, there's a lot of gear guys have to manage, and to try to keep track of batteries and everything, it's really difficult unless you're super, super organized. Evan has made this so that we not only do we have extended range on the battery, we've got a nice big battery, it's going to last a long time, but you've also provided USB charging. Can you talk about this a little bit? Because this is new to me, and this is a really welcome addition.
So if you look at the big extended battery, it might seem like, oh, that's cool because gives it more heft, and it obviously has extended capacity. But that's not the real reason I care about that battery. If you look on the right-hand side, or say the driver's side of the radio there, it's got a barrel plug right on the battery. And what that allows you to do is direct charge that battery. So now you can ditch that massive charging dock, which I actually love. When I have one sitting on my desk, I use the charging dock unplugged just as a stand, right? It's handy. But if you're trying to keep this compact and on the go, it's miserable. So this gives you your USB charging cable. You can find a USB port anywhere.
Your truck could have it.
Right, it lights up when you plug it in. It actually doesn't have reverse. But anyway, You can easily charge it off a battery bank, even a USB solar panel, something like that. So it opens up your options far past the AC charger, and it's smaller. So that's the main reason I go with the extended battery. It's not because I want the extra size or the capacity, it's the USB charging.
Yeah. And not to mention, it would be impossible to carry the factory charger like that in this slim case.
Right.
It wouldn't fit. And if you wanted to charge, even if you could get one in there, you're still only charging one battery at a time. Now where you could simultaneously charge all three radios at the same time, provided you have three USB plugs.
That's right.
And any computer is going to have that.
Any computer, most vehicles, because our phones, we live with our phones. So we're used to finding USB charging.
Right.
It's the best way.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. I'm super stoked. Well, let's grab a couple of the super chats. Why, I got so many things going on here. I need a producer. We have a super chat from Weapons Junkie, who has a comment. SOE and Radio Made Easy are both great companies. Yeah, it's you're dealing with real people here, real Americans that have the same mindset, and real people making this stuff. This is a great collaboration that we're doing. We have a comment from Old Heart, who says a few minutes behind. And let's see, if we already have the radios, can we pay Evan for the chirp setup files for our zip code? That's a question for you, Evan.
So I do have a custom programming product on the site. It's $39 for you to send me a radio, and that includes return shipping. So if you don't need the shipping, if you don't want to ship me the radio back and forth, I can send you the file and refund you the $9 for shipping. So it would be $30. I'm not sure if we want to do that with the Wranglerstar frequencies or not. These are going to have two simplex frequencies that we're kind of calling the ProHo primary and the ProHo alternate. I'm happy to provide those if we want to, maybe to members or not, but that's I do program for a fee as well if that's interesting to anyone.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk to Evan about that. We'll see what we want to do and what's fair and what's reasonable. Evan's put time into this. A man is worth getting paid for his work. So yes, it's easy to share a file, but that's not talking about all of the work that goes in on the back end on it. So we'll decide on that. We'll talk about that. Regarding this was kind of my idea. I asked him, Evan, if it was possible to have, let's say that you buy a radio on the East Coast and another guy buys one on the West Coast. We're going to have some different frequencies in here, obviously. But one thing all of the 100 radio kit will have is they'll have the two common, a primary and a backup, that in the event any of us were in close proximity or got together for an event, you would bring your radio kit. It would have two channels that we would all have common, regardless of where the programming was done. Is that correct?
That's right, and that's the theory with the whole thing. So, I mean, even within your own family, but across all of the Wranglerstar membership as well. So I think that was a great idea. I've seen that done across other groups of people that span the country when they come together. So, like Tactical Response alumni, people that have trained there, they have an alumni frequency pair that, if you're in town, everyone's on that, and it's kind of a cool way to stay connected. Now, you're not going to have worldwide range by any stretch with these radios, a few miles radio to radio, unless you happen to be on a mountaintop or floating in space. But I think it's cool to already have it pre-configured. So it's like, it's just your plan ahead of time, right? You're going to be on primary, and if that has noise on it, we go to alternate and rock and roll.
Yeah, and that's the setup that we have with our local group, of the War Band, I call it. We've been using our radios, trying to learn how to do it, figure out what the ranges are on our motorbikes, and we have a standard, and then we have a couple backups. So if you're not getting through, you jump over to the next, and everyone's on the same page. We have another super chat from, who's this? Mr. Jason Barr, who says it must be nice to have a radio. He's a little bit of a funny take on Owen Benjamin's "Must Be Nice." People complaining about that. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Is there anything apart from the extended battery, the charging, the antenna adapter, and stuff on the radio you want to talk about, the programming, or have we covered pretty much everything for the 3 radio set?
So one thing I will mention is this is a disconnect people have about this radio. They think it's easy to program. I want you to think about the average American right now. Do you have a working PC that's configured? And so now it might work on Mac now too. I think Chirp has been expanded to work on Mac. But do you have a computer, right? Like a lot of people I know, intelligent, respectable people, they run their entire life off their cell phone now. They haven't used a computer since college or high school because they don't need to. And you need a computer to program the radio the way I program it. Now, you can do it by hand, but you cannot do things like skip the NOAA weather stations on scan. So what I like to do is eliminate those from the scanning function, because if you don't, it would pick it up every revolution through the memory scan, and that's very annoying because you already know what the weather is the first time, right? So I eliminate that. I change a few other settings that you can only do through Chirp. If that's something, telling a guy he's got to go buy a $500 laptop now to program his $28 radio, that's annoying at best. So, that's something to consider. Other than that, the only thing we do is factory unlock the radio. It's not rocket science. There's a special combination of keys you use when you turn it on to unlock the transmit range, so we can use some of those frequencies that don't require a license. It is required now, a recent change, that these can't be shipped able to transmit on something like MERS that's license free. So there's some key presses you can do to make that possible. We go ahead and take care of that. We also quality assure the radio. So another thing people aren't thinking about is these show up to me by the pallet, and about 5% of them I throw in the trash because either a pixel is dead on the screen, or the antenna jack is misaligned, or it doesn't transmit clean. It has a buzzing noise or something. I just chuck that thing. And so if you're ordering this yourself, you might have to deal with that return and exchange BS to get 5 or 3 functioning radios, however many you're getting, and it's just it can be annoying. I take that out of the mix. You might not find that out until you depend on it, right? And it's an emergency and it doesn't work. That would be a bummer at best. So that's about it for the radios.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that, but there are, I'm in that camp. I've got things that I put away with the hopes that someday if I need it, it'll be there for me, but I hadn't even considered that. And I can't overemphasize the importance of what he's doing with the programming. As someone who has programmed their own radios, I ran into that very same thing. I wanted to scan the emergency frequencies. I had the ability to go do the chirps, but then I had to find a PC, because I'm an Apple guy. So I finally got everything on there, and then when I wanted to scan and listen to what was going on in my community, it would stop on the NOAA. It would stop, or I'll stop on something that's hot, keyed all the time, or got a lot of traffic on it, and it was unusable. I ended up just turning it off and wasn't able to use the scan feature because of that. So that was something that was just outside my understanding. I didn't even know there was an option to do that.
Yeah, but you can only do it through Chirp. But there's no way to do it inside the radio manually, unfortunately.
Right. Well, excellent. Okay, so I think that covers the radio. So let's get into what's the rest of the things that are in the kit here, and then we'll cover some of the accessories, which are one thing that was really impressive to me that after last live stream, I called Evan and said, what I really appreciated what you've done here is that there's a lot of tech here outside of the radio pouch. I get all this and the USB plugging. It's pretty straightforward. I think most of us get that. But I got bags of gear and cables and such, and I was trying to do a live stream and work through all this. It was so simple, the way it was packaged and the way it was all put together, and everything's works together. All of the connectors are the same. That within just looking at it, pulling it out, I was able to determine, oh, I know what this is. This is a remote antenna mount for my car. Yeah. This is will allow me to put coax through a window if I want to put an antenna up in a tree or on my roof to get a little bit extra range. It was really nice. So those are the accessories, and you're going to make those available as well. Is that right, Evan?
That's right. The ones I sent to you are available as add-ons or a la carte from my website, radiomadeeasy.com.
Okay.
It was fascinating watching you do that unboxing. I mean, the haters will say it's fake, but we never spoke about what I sent you. I packaged it and wrote on the label what it was, and you intuitively knew. It was amazing to watch how you just put it together, because that's what I aim to do, right? Like, I want, when a customer unboxes this, between what it's called and looking at it, they should be able to deduce what it's for, right? It shouldn't be any more complicated. Now, if you have to go find, all right, what end do I need on my antenna? Do I need SMA male or female, or BNC male or female, or SO239 or PL259? It's completely overwhelming, and you end up with the wrong stuff, and you have to buy adapters. So I just send it so it works. And you could do that through pain and suffering or research, right? But you're just going to order it and it's going to work. And because I've thought it through for you.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing. So I delighted in watching that unboxing, because I had no ability to intervene, right? Like, I couldn't tell you, no, it's for this, and you did great. So I was fascinated with that, because I rarely get the chance to watch the customer open it. So that was cool.
Yeah, and I did that on purpose. So Evan sent a great big cardboard box that had a bunch of stuff in it, and when I knew what it was, and I was excited to see it. So before this live stream, I cut it open. I took the bag out that was still sealed. I looked at it, and like, I'm just going to leave it alone. And we opened it online. So that's the way it happened. I was able to open it and understand exactly what's going on. So in addition to the bag, let's go into some of the accessories in the pouch. So how this lays out, obviously, is that we've got the 3 radios in here, and they fit with the adapter, which is nice. So you don't have to take that off. There's a side pouch over here, and in here are a couple things. We're going to have our 3 handmade antennas, our whip antennas that we discussed, and those will just quarter turn right on there. So I can actually put 3 antennas on these as quick as I could do, probably quicker than one of the old ones with all of the turning.
Yeah.
Also, in addition to that, there's going to be the 3 USB charging cords, so you'll be able to charge all 3 radios at one time if you want to. Most laptop computers have 3 USBs in them now. I know my truck has 4 or 5. And then also, and this was something that I asked if it would be possible, and there's a lot of work that went into this. I know how much work goes into it because I've had to do this sort of thing. A quick start guide. And not a crummy one that you're going to lose, or that if you got this wet, it's going to fall apart on you. These are made on really nice plastic stock, just like a thick, like a credit card would be. And I asked Evan, could you put basic commands on here, or the basic information? And what I wanted was, let's say I hadn't touched this radio for 2 or 3 years, and maybe at one time I kind of understood how to scan and such. This is going to be able to give you the reference guide on how to do the basic functions and get up and going. From the frequencies programmed in, it's really, it looks like a small thing, but this is a really nice custom touch that I was hoping that we could do. I'll tell you, when I first started wildland firefighting, I didn't have access to a radio because they don't give grunts radios. They just give them to guys that are in positions of command or authority or in charge of folks, or a single resource. As I worked my way up, and there was a lot of gatekeeping, to be honest with you. Even if you wanted to try to find out how to run, are there, what do we have there? BKs, were they? Bendix King radios. There's a whole bunch of, there's a keypad on the front. There are no instructions, just numbers. I mean, I looked at that thing. I had no idea what to even do. And then because of the gatekeeping, no one really wanted to tell you anything or share anything. I was really ill prepared, and I didn't have very good time using the radio. I went home that winter and built this. I had 2 cards like this, tiny, tiny writing of all the instructions, just like what Evan's laid out here for you. They're going to give you the ability to get a quick start on it. And I really appreciate this. Can you tell us a little bit what you decided to put on here, why, and what was making it?
So you're not the first person to ask for this, and I was inspired by ProKnot. So if you guys have ever seen these little guys on Amazon, it's the same thing for knot tying, right? So somebody gave me that for Christmas, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And I thought that would be the perfect format for the same thing. So they are PVC plastic cards with good printing that won't smear or, rub off. So they're waterproof, and you're not going to easily scratch or damage it or fold it. They're going to hold up to some use.
Yeah.
And what's on here are 4 pages. So I have gone basically so low level that you could hand this to grandma, and with a magnifying glass, she could learn how to use this radio, right? So how to turn it on, how to transmit, how to change the memory, everything like that, very basic things, all the way to how to program a repeater. If you had to do it manually, you could do it with this guide. It's pretty complicated on a Baofeng. It's one of the things that's awful about Baofeng radios is it's very hard to manually program. With a higher end radio, it's intuitive. It is not intuitive. There's a very long menu list that does not make any sense when you read the name of the menu item. It doesn't translate in your mind to what it does. So you need a guide, or you need to have at least a memory of how to do it. So this eliminates that. I've gone to great lengths to include everything. I teach classes on radios, right? So I have a class called Zero to Hero Radio Operator that I take people from zero to hero. And this is the hang up, is the steps. We will program them as a class, step by step, and it will take 4 or 5 attempts with me guiding them, right? Like with me giving instructions. So this eliminates that, at least the hang up of not knowing how. It might take some trial and error still. You might miss a step, but it's all listed here. It also has some of, like on the repeater side, it shows you the common offsets. So if you've forgotten, I know there's a local repeater on this frequency, but I don't remember the offset. Chances are it's listed here for you for whichever band it falls into. So that's the radio functions and programming guide. Then the other page, as you mentioned, it has the memory guide. So what I did there was list out for my programming what is going to be where and in what order. So you can quickly see 1 through 22 are your GMRS or FRS frequencies. 23 through 27 are MERS. And I don't have the ProHo stuff on there because it's specific to this project. But some simplex frequencies. And then the reason for the big empty space with repeaters is what you should do when you get your radio is do a survey. So go to somewhere outside your house that you intend to be able to communicate from and see what repeaters you can hear. And then you should list them here. Even if it's close, it doesn't mean there's not an obstruction. So you could note I fit 88 repeaters on most of these. So that's 88 in order of distance from your zip code. So it'd be good to know, all right, number 36 is really clear, number 48 is really clear, and number 72 is really clear. Go ahead and write that in a grease pen or a Sharpie in that empty box. And now you know, okay, that's my protocol. If it's an emergency, I jump straight to those. That sort of thing. And then the last thing is the phonetic alphabet and Morse code. That's it might seem silly, but that's actually really handy if you need to transfer information to someone verbally. You need to spell it phonetically, and these are words that make sense phonetically for each letter. They're unique enough that they sound like that letter. So if you're sharing an address or sharing a tracking number or some kind of important information that's very specific to the spelling, using that is handy. And then I also threw on a Morse code translation. So if you happen to hear a Morse code, if you're not trained to understand it, it's probably going to be challenging, but at least you know the dits and das for each letter and number. If you have a recording, you could play it back and you could decode it using this card. So just 4 heavy hitters, right? Like the Hall of Fame basic essentials on a waterproof card. That was important to me. I could easily have just printed that on cardstock and, stapled it together and threw it in there. This takes an extreme. I literally hand drill with a brad point bit. Like I hand drill the cards. I rivet them with a grommet. Like I build that myself. Like I've touched it. So um, that's that's my creation there. I hope it helps people.
It's one of the. I think it's one of the most important parts of the kit. To be honest with you, just to be able to program a radio, like how I would use this, and this has actually happened to me multiple times. We go snow biking with large groups of people sometimes in really remote locations. Radio communications are essential. I won't go without someone that has a radio. That's why one of the reasons why I developed the 3 radio kit, because guys show up and don't have them. You get separated from there. There are no trails. You can get stuck in a creek anywhere without a radio. It would be impossible to find anyone apart from just sheer
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah.
One thing that I have ran into, guys show up with radios, but they're not programmed. And I asked, does anyone know how to program a Bofang? Well, no one knows how to program a Bofang. With this right here, I would be able to grab that radio and follow the instructions and just punch that in, at least just punch in one of my codes of frequencies to get him on the same page so he can communicate with the group. That's worth a
Yeah.
lot to me right there.
Yeah, and you can save the memory, right? So it's not just put in the frequency. If they happen to bump the key, then they've lost it. You can actually save it. So it's stored in memory. Okay, we're using this frequency today and it's number 30. This guide will help you do that. So not just getting working, but actually get them saved so you can't lose your spot. That's really common. Is guys think they're just, it's easy to punch in the frequency. It's also easy to punch it in on accident. So, and then if you're separated and you don't remember it, good luck. So really trying to help ease the pain a little bit. And it comes from experience, right? Like I've taught hundreds of people now how to use these radios, and I know what you need to know because of those classes. I know the questions I'm asked. I know the pain points. It looks simple, like you said, right? But hours and hours of my life have gone into knowing what to put on here. So
Yeah. And that's experience. And to gain experience, usually it costs a lot of money. I know things that I have learned the hard way. I will never forget those lessons. So you can't put into. It's hard to quantify how important that little piece is. That quick start guide. I think that's the thing that really makes the kit special.
and I just listed those on my site. If someone wants just that, you can get it separately. You don't have to buy a $500 package.
Yeah.
But that I'm really proud of that. I'm going to be building these for everything I sell from now on. So I carry a bunch of different radios. They all have different buttons and different menu systems. So everything I sell will have something like this. A friend of mine, John Willis, actually the guy that builds the bags, he thinks it would be great to build these for chainsaws, for your Kubota, or for your tractor. Like whatever it is. That's the quick start guide, right? Like, and it's waterproof. Like someone should just be the quick start king that has a library of these. So maybe we'll get on that, but this is the first of many to come, I think.
Yeah, I have done that in the past. The first time I did one of those, what I saw, I think maybe it was a movie or a documentary, and I saw how the Air Force and NASA uses quick start guides. When you take pilots or astronauts that have to deal with really complex systems,
Absolutely.
you can't possibly remember everything. We're living
No,
our lives. We have stuff going on. The last thing I'm going to do is to crowd in my mind, radio frequency programming, that sort of thing.
right.
What I saw those guys do, like in the event of emergency, if something happens, the flaps won't deploy on a plane. There's a procedure where you pull it out. Everything's been thought of by the engineers, and it's step-by-step checklist of this is what you do when you're faced with this difficulty or this problem. I've
Yeah,
done these in the past. The first
that's
one that I did
beautiful.
myself was just laminated cards in plastic bags of the fire pump, our skid unit. Even me, having decades in doing it at the beginning of the season, there's some things you forget. And if you don't throw the right valve, you can burn up a pump. You can destroy a good piece of equipment
Absolutely.
for lack of understanding. So what I did not only for myself but for my family members was this is it. Number one, open this valve. Number two, do this. I think that's a great idea, especially I think that we have to I guess, Western people growing up in this culture in this time, we have to deal with more technology and process more information than anyone ever has in the history of the world. It's ridiculous. Like just this
Yeah.
morning, I was getting really frustrated trying to get the stream started because I had to go into a new software. It's like, well, the
Yep.
last thing I need to do with all of the busyness of my day is to go and learn another program. I mean, I'm just over it. And maybe it's got
Yeah.
something to do with age, but having the quick start guide, you can remove all of that anxiety and worry and postponing someday. Maybe I'll learn about this stuff. You're never going to do it. If you're like me, it's just not going to happen. Life's too busy. So the quick start guide is a huge addition. I really appreciate the effort that went into that. One thing that was, we talked about this and I knew it was going to be in there, but I kind of forgot about it. So this was a bit of a surprise as far as just some added value to the kit is this excellent single radio pouch that's MOLLE compatible. A lot of
Mhm.
us are going to be rolling these radios or want to have the ability to roll these radios into a tactical situation or a home defense situation. This is not designed for that. This is not something that you're going to put on the side of your kit, most people, but you've included this excellent pouch. Now, this is also USA made. Can you tell us how this came about? And it's a minimalist design. It's absolutely brilliant.
That's right. It's made by the same company, SOE, John Willis, and Camden,
Handmade.
Tennessee. Yep. So made by those same folks I was talking about earlier. We actually kind of collaborated on this. John has built radio pouches for years that don't really fit this radio so well. And so we did a collaboration a few weeks back actually to make these together. And so it's a simple, elegant design of everything you need and nothing you don't. And it actually is my preferred type of pouch for a radio. So you notice it does not have a flap over the top. It has shock cord. And so the reason for that, look how it so nicely navigates through that channel between your volume knob and your antenna. If that was a flap, it would be having to navigate around that antenna and it wouldn't lock up evenly, right? So I love having a shock cord loop over the top. You can see the screen if you pull it down far enough, and it's cool because it's a multicam. It's a multicam pouch, and he's added the Cordura on the face of the Velcro, so you still get the color of the pouch, right? So it's not just Velcro color. It's still multicam on the front, which is cool. So as far as MOLLE goes, there's a million ways to attach MOLLE, or PALS webbing is another term for it. But basically, you can loop this onto any MOLLE compatible gear. You can use it for belt loops. You can order their belt attachments to convert this to run it on a belt. It's really modular. It's kind of the OG of modularity in the tactical world. It's the best way to attach gear. And
It
I
is.
recently heard John say, if you're not like severely annoyed with it while you're putting it on, you're not putting it on right. So MOLLE should be weaved through the receiving side and the attachment side so that it's interconnected like your fingers, not just flat through one and flat through the other. So it makes, you could drag someone with this, like
It's that
it's
strong.
hardcore.
Yeah. And also, one thing that seems to be a common thread here, Evan, and I know this doesn't happen by accident, is that you're thinking it through. You're giving guys options. Let's say in the future that you wanted to upgrade your radio or just have options. This is not just limited to the Bofang radio. I was thinking as we were talking, my other radios have never had the extended battery. Some guys are not going to have that.
Yeah.
These are nice to have for just around the homestead and such because they're so light. Even that is going to be completely compatible
Yep.
in this pouch, even though it's the smaller one.
It fits
And
my ACV X6R. It fits an FT60. It's not elastic, so it will have some limitation. But we also made sure there was enough give so that if you have a headset attached on that Kenwood plug, it will fit, and the radio pouch actually has a little extra retention provided it's tight around that plug when it's in there, so it's helping retain that cable just a little extra touch, right? Like, so people will say, like, I can go buy a pouch for X amount dollars. It's going to be made by a human slave, and it will not be made for this exact situation. It's
Right.
not going to hold up. Like, this is an excellent product. These sell for $45. They can't make enough of them. That's how many they've sold. Um, so that's included in the kit, and that's something adds a lot of value, I think. And like I said, it doesn't have to be tactical. You can run it on a belt, like out running around,
Right.
if you want to look cool. And
Yeah,
all the ladies will swoon if you have that,
they will. It's
outside the waistband radio.
the multi cam alone.
That's right.
Yeah. This is a lot of thought. This is the I've had several radios that I've tried from Spiritus and different companies, and I've always been unhappy with them. I always use the Bofang, so this is nice. But all my radios, my Midlands, even the Motorola's, everything that I have will fit in here. What he's talking about, the Kenwood plug. So on the side of the Bofangs, if we want to add accessories, so this is the radio that I use for dirt biking. I have a remote microphone, just like the police officers, cops have. You'll see it right here on their lapel. The reason for that is that if you're around heavy equipment, motorcycles and such, you can't, and you want to throw a radio in the pack to protect it, keep it dry and such, you can't hear what's going on. You certainly can't key
Yeah.
or use the radio. So having a remote mic or some of the accessories that we're going to get into gives you the ability to have that right here. And that all interfaces through a common plug, which is the Kenwood style. Now, which radios are going to receive Kenwood style plugs, Evan?
Um, any low cost radio typically uses that, and then some of the nicer radios still use it. So Anytone, B-Tech, TYT, Woshin. There's quite a number of manufacturers that still use that plug. It is an old school plug. It's being replaced by other things. And I saw in the chat some people talked about they have a preference for different model Baofengs. This is actually one of the key reasons I picked the UV5R. Is there's a newer radio that has a waterproof connector on it, right? Well, guess what you lose when you move to that waterproof connector? The ubiquitous accessory pool for the Kenwood plug, right? So that's great, but your programming cable doesn't work, your speaker mic doesn't work, your Peltor adapter, your push to talk doesn't work. You got to buy all new stuff for a proprietary Baofeng connector now. So whoop-de-doo, it's a cool new Baofeng. It does the same thing that this one does in a cooler body, and you lose all that modularity. So heck no from me, right? Like, I'll stick with the tried and true Honda Civic of radios here. And I get there's cool new stuff. I think I like cool stuff, but it's not worth the jump to me. You lose that Kenwood plug, and it is going to work with some newer stuff. Like I just set one of my customers up this weekend on a $350 digital DMR radio that this does work with. So he's upgrading, and all his stuff still works. So he has some headsets, the acoustic ear tubes. It sounds like that might be cool for the moto riding, that plug into the speaker mic for listen only. Stuff like that, it's all going to work. So, I think it's worth sticking with the Kenwood.
Yeah, just to have access to that accessory market is important. But what I wanted to explain this, what we're talking about with the case is that it's been cut generous enough. What I've found with when you get into really high end radios and such, they're going to have the ability to lock these things down, with a screw or something, because they needs to be durable. If you're talking emergency services and that sort of thing. One concern I've had about the Bofang, which has been unfounded because I've never had an issue with it. I throw this in my pack, and I have had a concern that if that were to pull out, I'd have to get in there and plug it back in. It's never done that before, but the design of the pouch assists in that. It's highly unlikely that that would ever come unplugged. And even if it did, you'd have it right here. You could just simply squeeze it. But it has a nice detent, and it goes in there hard. Now, to get into accessories, another thing that you demystified for me was this system. These are really common now. We see all the high-speed operators use them. A lot of guys LARPing on YouTube have them. And that is a push to talk. This is something that I've wanted to get into. What this gives you the ability to do is that, let's say you have a radio mounted, and you've seen these on guys' web gear and such, there's just a big button right there, big analog button, and then there's a receiver here. This plugs directly into Peltor's, is it, Evan? Which, if you already have a headset, a tactical headset with speakers and a microphone, this is going to plug directly into the push to talk. Is that correct?
That's right. So you can basically divide the market into military style that are going to require an amplified push to talk, which is what that is. If you have more consumer grade, like something like M32 Earmore, like something that paintballers and airsofters commonly use, those are usually not amplified. So it does matter what headset you're trying to connect it to. But if it's MSA Sorden, if it's Peltor Comtax, if it's OpsCore amps, any of the high end, like if you paid $300 or more and there's a mic hanging off of it, that will work with it. What you're looking for is called a U174 down lead. So if your headset has a mic, now it's not going to work on Walker Razors or Howard Lights or any of the non communication oriented headsets, but it will work on anything with a microphone that's military style down lead. So that's a U174 connector. Kind of looks like a guitar cable, a little bit stumpier, but that's what that's intended for. There's a plethora of those adapters. That is also a part of the market that is very confusing. If you're trying to connect headsets to a radio, it's a nightmare. And I actually am potentially working with a night vision company to kind of go hand in hand with them to make that easy. So you'll be able to go through a wizard that says, all right, here's the radio I have, here's the headset I have, fill in the middle for me, right? Like give me the guts to make that work. But the one I sent you is for amplified military style headset like Peltor Comtax or OpsCore amps.
This was very mystifying to me. I've been on, I think it's the Disco 32 website where he does some radio stuff and looks like he knows what he's talking about. I went on his site. I put things in carts multiple times, and I never checked out because I didn't know if it was compatible. I found it to be confusing. There were so many cables and such. This really demystifies that. Simply to add PTT function to your 3 radio kit, you would just simply need the amplified push to talk, and then you're already going to have your headset, and that plugs directly in, and you're going. You're going to have audio in a tactical helmet situation or a Peltor situation. Simple, easy, done.
That's right. And there are other types of headsets. There are in-ear headsets that have that same down lead. Just to warn people, though, I mean, that world is similar to night vision. It's like you're going to spend money. Like the second you leave that radio to bring it up to your head, the price comes with it, right? Like it's starts to get expensive. Now, I did mention the Earmore M32. Some of my local guys use that headset. They make their own push to talks. They're pretty usable. They're going to break on you. They're in the same class as the Baofeng radio, right? Like you don't want to trust your life to it. But if you're trying to take it through training or do some stuff maybe on loud equipment, it's serviceable, and it's about a quarter of the cost of the lowest end military style stuff. So there's options out there, but that's an important piece of the puzzle.
Well, I can kind of tell you. I just kind of set this up quickly, like if we were going to use this in a tactical environment with a push to talk, Peltors and such, with quarter turn, flexible antenna on there. Basically, the whole kit has been built right here while we were talking.
Yep.
I would see that the evolution of this radio kit for me, Evan, is going to be, now that I've freed up so much bandwidth by solving the problems of the antenna, solving the problems of the programming, solving the antennas or the problem of the push to talk, and I know that all of this is going to be cross compatible. I'm much more likely now, once I'm established and everything's working and I kind of get an understanding of how to use this, where I might consider upgrading my radio.
Exactly.
What would that cost for a guy? That's even more confusing than anything of which radio to get, UHF, VHF. I don't understand any of that. let's say a guy wanted to go up to something that is going to be close to military rated, something that's going to be durable, tough. What type of an investment would just the radio body be to work with the system that you've built?
That is a loaded question, man. I'll ignite some fires on what I recommend, I'm sure, but there's kind of two schools of thought, right? Like if you want to buy something military surplus or LMR surplus, so like stuff that's been offloaded from EMS or fire, that are moving off of analog or they're upgrading their radios, you can buy something like a Motorola XTS 2500 or an XTS 5000. That is a big honking radio, though. It's like 12 inches tall, very durable, really good battery life. It's going to be P25 or DMR encrypted, possibly. Like super cool. They're awesome. Guess what? You need a license from Motorola to program that radio, or you have to take it to a Motorola shop and have them program it. So no chirp programming anymore, right? You're also limited to one band, so you have to pick VHF or UHF. You want to hear NOAA weather stations? Got to stick with VHF. You want to use GMRS? Got to stick with UHF, right? So it sucks, right? Like they are made to be purchased by people who don't ask the price, like government employees. So I think that's a great option if you're going to be an enthusiast and you want to go learn how to do that and you want to carry a big, huge radio. What I love is a Yaesu VX6. It's analog, but it has a threaded waterproof connection, right? So I can go swimming with it on accident, most likely, right? Like fall in the creek or something. And it's small. And it's quality, right? So I'm able to program it on the fly without a manual because it's intuitive. The receiver is far superior. It charges over DC by default, so I don't need a special battery like I do for the bow thing. It's a solid choice. It's analog. It's not cool guy stuff. A lot of guys want encryption. They want to run digital. I don't even go there right now because I'm trying to make things easy. It's not easy.
Right.
So there's a huge world. You could go down that path, either military surplus or police, fire, EMS surplus. If you want to buy new, you need a 4-digit budget for the radio.
Right. That's what my experience has been. Well, now I can start to see why the Baofangs are so popular. You get the dual bands; they can be unlocked. It cuts away all of that nonsense and makes it approachable for guys.
Yeah, yeah.
I would rather have. I mean, I would imagine you are more of a foremost, kind of the foremost radio expert here. I would imagine that even you, with access to the nicest high-speed gear, would rather have a set of lower-end radios than have none at all.
Without a doubt. I mean, you could have that philosophy with everything.
Right. That's why Harbor Freight exists.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about Harbor Freight, like if you, a good friend of mine used to use their tile saw, and he laid tile like once every 10 years, right? So, I mean, if you're trying to get one job done and you need to do it quickly on a low budget, this is kind of a similar theory, right? If you're not going to use this radio for a living, you're not going to be an operator, right? Or you're not going to be fire, EMS, police, right? You're not being supplied a radio for your job, then this will get the job done for you. And when you're ready to upgrade, similar to Harbor Freight, right? Like if I got to do the job today, I don't have DeWalt or Milwaukee money today. I have Bauer money, right? Or I have what is it, the Tornado or some cringy name on the Harbor Freight stuff, right? Like that.
Right.
That'll get the job done, and then when I'm ready to be a real ProHo, I get the real stuff. So I think
Yeah.
that's a cool path to take.
I have no concerns with these radios just from my personal experience. I bought my first one right before the COVID lockdowns, and that has been in my pocket, dropped. It's been in snow, winter, 20 below snow biking in packs. It's
Yeah.
been through moto and dust. The only issue I've ever had with one is this year I broke a clasp on the battery, which I put a new battery on there. It was done. I feel really good about these radios. They're not bulletproof. I'm not going to treat them like I used to treat my Motorola with the fire department, where you
Yeah.
could drop it in water and run over it. I'm not
Yeah,
going to do
water's the real
that.
kryptonite.
Water, yeah.
Mm.
Well, let's get into some of the accessories. That was kind of the fun part. Well, there were many fun parts, but to increase the capability of these radios, another obstacle a problem that you've kind of solved for me, Evan, is that we operate, uh, probably not typically more than a quarter mile or so away from the house. We don't have cell coverage everywhere. It's spotty. It's not reliable. I've been wanting to have kind of a base station, for lack of a better word, that I could kind of keep in the house. But I looked into base stations and I didn't know what they were. How do I get one compatible with the radios? It was
Yeah.
just way too much for me.
Yeah.
You can what you've kind of sent me here. You can press this into that role. Am I correct in assuming that?
Definitely on the antenna side of the equation, I sent you what we call the field expedient base station kit and the field expedient vehicle kit. So emphasis on field expedience, right? Like this is not intended to be necessarily a permanent installation. Most people don't want a wire hanging out of their window for more than a few hours at a time, right? That's kind of an ugly solution. But if you can't drill holes, you can't get to your attic or crawl space, and you need to get an antenna outside. Like a common problem we have is metal roofs. You
Mhm.
can't get reception to what you need. Or vehicles are terrible about blocking transmit out or receive in because they're made of metal, and metal is what
Faraday,
blocks
basically
transmissions.
Faraday cages.
Right. So you've got some obstacles there that I've solved the problem without pain and suffering again, right? So you've got like your field expedient base station kit. That window jumper is the secret sauce. It's made by Comet Antennas. It's made in Japan, and that is the thinnest wire that you can imagine that you can actually close a window down over, and it's going to give you the capability to jump through a window or a door or any kind of opening without having to leave it cracked, right? So if your AC or your heat's running, you don't want that gap
Yes.
under your, or you don't want to leave it unlocked for a burglar while you're out of town. So that's kind of the theory. There is something I can get out of the house. You notice those even have holes through them that you can mount. You can rigid mount those ends into the wall so you can
Oh, I
screw
see that.
through them.
Screw
Um,
hole. I didn't notice that.
that's an excellent solution. I love that as a, like I said, a field expedient solution to getting your wire outside the house.
So let me kind of lay it how I would use this. Now, I knew as soon as I've had this experience before, trying to transmit out of vehicles before, especially being an engine boss in wildland firefighting. We were constantly battling with that. We would try to get. Well, you knew immediately you had to get out of the vehicle. That was number one. So we're stopping, we're getting in, getting out. It's not always safe to get out, or trying to drive up to a high location. To be able to improve that with such a simple kit, and this is about my favorite here. This is
Yeah,
this
I
is
love it.
a magnetic antenna base with some coax on it. So I want to just show you quickly how quickly you could turn your handheld into a more capable radio. If we just took the antenna that comes in the radio kit, now you're going to start to see the brilliance of these connector adapters. All this stuff's compatible.
That's right.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just as soon as I saw it, I understood it. I
Yep.
would pull this antenna, the whip antenna that comes with the 3 radio kit, and I'm just going to quarter turn that on. This has got a heavy magnet on it. The moment I took this out, this is made by Signal Stuff. This is a high quality item right here. Tell me about this and who makes these. It's very
So it's
impressive.
the same company that makes the antenna, and so they've built this. It has a nice rubber pad under it, so it's not going to scratch your paint. That's
Really
not
a strong
common.
magnet too.
That's right, and it's not experiencing a lot of force, right? It's just that little whip in the air, so you're not trying to hang a stop sign off the top of your car, and that really is the solution to running that radio in a vehicle. So again, it's not made to be a permanent solution. It's made to be field expedient. A permanent solution would be run that wire through your firewall into a permanently mounted, or a magnet's a great mount either way, but you probably don't want that running through your weather stripping all the
Right.
time. But you can simply throw that up, close the door over the coax. Your weather stripping is going to have enough give that it's not going to crush, and you're up and running. You don't have to buy a full blown antenna either, so you already have the antenna. All this is a base that moves. It's a relocation kit, basically.
Right.
So a lot of times you could, like, I have one. This is a diamond antenna, the same thing, but it's permanently affixed to the magnetic base. So it works the same way, but this costs twice as much, and I can't transport this with me. I can keep that magnetic base in my EDC bag, and if I happen to be stuck in some guy's car on a road trip and we need to use the radio, I can get it working. And so I love throwing those in a glove box, having one in your kit to get it working in the vehicle. And that's the theory.
It's really, really smart. I want to show you how quickly that could be adapted. I could probably get this inside the radio bag kit if I stuffed it around a little bit, or the little
Maybe
kit.
so.
Snap the antenna on, but all you're going to do, to increase the range on that with your radio, is that coax is going to be all compatible. So everything that Evan's put together, this stuff's all cross compatible with the adapters. Now we've connected to our radio. Well, I've got a lot of stuff going on here. Let me take that PTT off. We've got the radio in the cab, and with using the antenna that came with it, and it doesn't matter. There's enough coax here where you have a big truck or a van. There's going to be enough to go out the window and get that up on there. That's going to make a tremendous difference.
And right in the middle is the best place. So get it. It creates a ground plane that kind of catches radio waves, and you got about 15 feet of coax there. Easy enough to get it through a door. You don't need to run it through an open window. I've seen people try that. You can literally just close the door over it. It should have enough give with your weather stripping.
I would probably use this if it was wintertime, if it was really cold or you're worrying about rain coming in the vehicle. But to be honest with you, I think most guys are going to be able to figure out how to snake in an emergency a piece of coax through a window without it being a problem.
Yep.
That's a great accessory right there. What does this cost if a guy wanted to add this, just out of curiosity?
$39 for that.
I don't know how he's making them for $39 because it is a nice piece of equipment.
It is. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. Now this, of course, when I saw this, I thought this would probably be something that I would use at home. If I wanted to pass this through a double hung or single hung window, it would give me the ability to have an antenna up at a high location, and I could close and I could secure the window. I wouldn't have to leave it unlocked or worry about damaging the cable, because some of the windows, the weather stripping on them is pretty tight.
Yeah.
Well,
it comes with an antenna that's designed to be hung in a tree or from a pole. So that's a roll-up antenna. It's not a rigid pole or a vertical antenna. It's actually, compact, so it's transportable. So that's included with that kit as well. If you have trees nearby, that's the best way to hang an antenna, using nature's antenna mast. But if you don't have trees or in the desert or something, a painter's pole is a great way to get it up in the air. A flag pole, lots of good options. Hang it off a nail on the side of a building, that kind of thing.
Yeah, just use your brain, figure it out.
Right.
We have a couple of super chats. I'm sorry, gentlemen. I got to talking to Evan and forgot about you guys. Stubby writes, he has a question. Can you just drop the bag into an EMP protected pouch or an ammo can and be good to go? Or are there any necessary steps to protect the kit? I'm assuming he's asking about maybe protecting it from an EMP.
It sounds like it. That's not my area of expertise. My understanding is you need a pretty intense protection to actually survive a modern EMP. But that's above my pay grade. I am not a specialist in that. I know my friends at EMP Shield do make 12-volt compatible EMP protection. That's actually an inline surge protection device, but these would not work with that. So Physical protection is what you're going to need. A Faraday cage. There's tons of products. I don't know if they work. I'm not going to say they work. I don't know.
It's hard to get information on that. I've ran into that as well. From what I understand, what most guys, what they're relying upon as a general rule of thumb is some sort of double shielding,
Right.
whether that be an ammo can with a can inside of a can, or maybe even a heavy couple layers of Reynolds wrap, that sort of thing. I don't know if anyone really knows for sure, but all I know is what I'm doing, protecting valuable things like having a basic some radios, maybe even electronic ignitions for some of your critical tools like chainsaws and such like that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Mhm.
But I can't really speak to that as well. But that's a good question. We have another super chat. Let me grab this here. And this is from Mr. Jason Barr writes, maybe Evan could walk through the exoskeletons, that super cool accessory. Yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about as well. That was something that was unexpected for me.
Yeah, the exoskeleton is an incredible product. It's designed by a guy in the United States, Sam from Great Plains Creations. He's one of the first people that believed in what I was doing at Radio Made Easy and sent me a box of these to carry to shows, just kind of on a whim, and trusted me with being a wholesaler. And this is the best. There's tons of products like this, but it's the best one I've found. It protects the radio from drops, but it also, the biggest reason I like it is it protects you from accidental button presses.
Yes.
So on the push to talk or the monitor button on the side of the radio, as well as the volume knob. So I hold the record in the family. Our family holds the record for the torture testing of this device. So over the holidays, I built radios for my daughters, who are 3 and 4 at the time, and I painted them their favorite colors. So the exoskeleton was perfect because it not only added me something to paint, but obviously makes it toddler proof. And they managed to break one on the concrete, and Sam told me they were the first to break it. So it's nylon. It's a very flexible but rigid material, which is kind of a paradox, I guess. But really cool product, and I put them on most of my radios.
It is cool. I'm assuming that this is 3D printed.
Yes, in nylon though, so you're not typically getting that material with 3D printing. It requires like an industrial size machine that can print nylon.
Yeah, I've bought a few things that were 3D printed in the early days, and it was a real brittle material. This
Right.
has more of a tougher ABS type of feel. It's flexible, but it doesn't feel like something you could break very easily.
No, and like I said, we've tested that theory, and it's been great. So not only protecting you from the button pushes, but also giving the radio a little more protection. Now it costs what the radio cost, so keep that in mind. You know, you can quickly start outpacing yourself by adding accessories to these, but if you're investing in that, you know, your pouch works with that radio, your accessories work with it. I think it's essential if you're going to run it in that pouch, because think about the environment. You're mounting a radio to you. You're going to be brushing up against things and pushing things. I took a rifle class without that product, and every time I presented my rifle, I heard a dun with my my radio getting turned on, and
Right.
so I had to move my radio. That's part of what you get in training, right? Is you learn what works and what doesn't. But it prevents that problem from happening, having the knob protected. So I really love the product. They're $26 on my site, or you can order direct from Great Plains Creations. Great dude, American patriot, and love to support what he's doing.
This is a great addition. The mounting is very intuitive and simple. The bow fangs have the 2 Phillips screws in the back to connect the the pocket clip, and you remove those, and it's pre-drilled right here. What I noticed is I like this. I'm a fan of this. I have something very similar. I used to run the Surefire X series lights on my some of my AR builds, and I like that light, but it's kind of built more around pistols,
Right.
and it's really easy to have a negligent discharge or a light discharge with that. It happens all the time, moving it around. I
Yeah.
immediately found out that that was not at all suitable for a carbine in an
Because you can
environment like
push
that.
it forward, right? You can push forward or flip it on.
Right, and it's always activating. I actually found a company that builds a similar type of thing, a set of wings that
Ah,
prevents
cool.
you from touching that so simple that you can put it on there. It's the same concept. But just from someone that uses these radios a lot and throws them in packs in really difficult environments, I am always concerned about a couple things. And one is the volume knob and the antenna mast. And
Yep.
we have a nice protrusion up there. The volume knob is completely covered. You can easily activate it and adjust the volume through the back, but
Yep.
there's no way that this is going to be changed or up or down in a pack. Not to mention the PTT. There's nothing more embarrassing than being the guy that's got a hot mic, especially when you're in a professional organization, and that's happened to people before and they never live it down. It's horrible.
And
And
pro
it can
tip on the
jeopardize.
Baofeng radio is press and hold the number button at the bottom right. It has a little key icon, and that locks your keypad. Everyone should know how to lock any radio you own. You should know how to lock the keypad. It doesn't prevent push to talk, but it at least prevents you changing the channel accidentally.
Yep.
But yes, it's almost a meme at this point in the training world, like the guy who had the hot mic, right? Because while you're hot micing, nobody else can talk.
Yeah.
You're overriding them, so it's a real pain.
It's a real problem, and this alleviates that.
Yep.
Very nice unit. Yeah, it works with the case. You can still get to the PTT. That's a neat addition. I'd never seen anything like it before, and that's really great. I'm going to put that on my personal radio actually today. One other. Let's see. Let me double check the super chats here. There was maybe another question or two. I got Mrs. W's phone here. Gotta remember the password here. Can you please describe the Mars mod? This is from Good Crazy Cajun. I don't
Okay.
know.
So explaining it at what level, I'm not sure what he wants to know. There's no Mars mod for this radio. It's a Mars cap mod that was basically originally these radios are shipped with restrictions. So there's electronic restriction in the circuitry of the radio to prevent out of band transmission. Right. So they're limited to only the amateur radio frequencies. And what Mars and CAP, they're actually military auxiliary radio service or civil air patrol. So what there used to be a membership you could get in these organizations where you support the military as an amateur, as a civilian through these programs. So the mod was named after those programs. They're pretty much irrelevant now. But what the mod involves is modifying the circuitry of the radio to transmit out of band. So that's what it is. Not sure why it's relevant here, but that's my best answer for you. I hope it's sufficient.
Yeah, I was not aware of that. I didn't know that either. We have a question from Hanky Mountain for you, Evan. He says, yes, how do you rate the BF F8HP or the 8-watt radios? Also, can you accidentally transmit on the emergency channels with the radios unlocked?
Yeah, so the 8-watt radio costs 3 times more than the 5-watt radio. So all those wattage ratings should be in air quotes. And if you see the tests of the radios, they aren't really a full 8 watts. And it's, in my opinion, a little bit of a marketing ploy. If you actually study a little bit about how power works with radios, you need to quadruple your power for 1 S unit increase. So an S unit is on a scale of 1 to 9, how loud and clear your signal is. So to move the needle 1 notch, you need to quadruple your power. So in that context, you're going from 5, let's say you're doubling it. right? 5 to 10 watts, still not really solving a lot of problems. So, in my opinion, it's better to spend money on a better antenna or more radios. So, if you have the budget for the BF8, it costs, I believe, $60, something like that. So, you can buy 3 of these for the price of one of those. It's kind of like buying a Palmetto State rifle, and I can hand those out instead of one really great rifle. But not a perfect analogy, right? But I think it's kind of that theory of, in this realm, like in this category of radio at this price point, stick with the lower power, supposedly lower power version, and buy more of them instead of trying to polish the turd. That's my take. There, if you get a deal on one and it's about the same price, go for it. But make sure it's the UV5R style. So all the exoskeletons, all the batteries, all the Kenwood connectors, all that works with the radio. Don't jump to a Baofeng that's a different body style, that has a different battery and a different connector, or you lose not just your own gear, but gear you come across in the field that might work with your radio. That's not worth the sacrifice. I really caution people about that. You might as well get a really awesome radio if you're going to completely leave the reservation.
Plus, you might be able to loot a good pair of contacts off the battle site, right?
Never know. Never know.
All
We had
right.
another question there, sorry, about transmitting on emergency frequency. So technically, yes, if you wanted to, you could interfere. I do not program it that way. You would have to go out of your way to do that, and that wouldn't be right. So please don't do that. You also, it's hard to do because there's typically more than just the frequency needed to be able to access that frequency. Or access that system, you need either a tone or a code to get into those systems. And you will be hunted by people if you start interfering. You play nice, don't be a gentleman, and don't interfere even with civilians, right? Like if someone's using a frequency, move out of the way. Don't be a jerk, and then you will not create a bad name for those of us who are trying to make this easy for you. So that is a risk that you should be careful about, is not transmitting. And you could just set it not to transmit at all on those channels as well, but that would be for listening only on emergency frequencies.
Right. Yep. Yeah. That's a good point. Really good point. And that's another thing. There's the laws are something that most guys are not going to understand, and there's a lot of confusion with that. I never got the right answer. Having Evans put this together to make it easy for us, make it safe, where you're not going to get yourself into trouble. You can still have the function and the comms that you need without running afoul of the law. So I appreciate that as well.
Yeah. And it's rules, not laws.
Rules. Yeah. We have a comment from our friend Mr. Overton, who writes, "Let's share a laugh. First word from a ham in the live chat. He was complaining that no one was interested in his knowledge and talking about legality. Go figure." Can you imagine a ham radio guy coming in with that? What a shock.
It is shocking.
And Mr. DB Cooper says, "Most informative live stream I've ever watched. Thank you. I have a Yeshua, Yesua. How do you pronounce that, Evan? Yesu, coming from Evan. Yeah, I think I might be ordering one from myself from you as well. That looks like that looks like a good package for something that's gonna be a little bit more durable.
If you like front pocket carry, it is the bee's knees for that. I love it. It's a good radio. It's my EDC.
That's the way I roll it. There's another accessory that I didn't know existed that's been life changing around here, and that has been the stubby antenna. Can you talk about that real briefly, and I'll pull that up here, because the problem being is if you carry in the pocket like I do, you're poking yourself in the head 100 times a day, and that's really a bummer.
That's right. This is probably one of my favorite things. It's called the Miracle Baby from Comet Antennas. They've been generous enough to add me as a wholesaler for them, so I've recently added them to my to my product lineup. But I've been a customer of theirs for this product for years because of exactly that reason. It makes a radio a pleasure to carry. And as we know with other tools we carry, right? Like if you don't have it on you when you need it, then it's not worth even having, right? Like it's not useful if it's at home or in the safe or in your desk or whatever, right? So if this makes it carryable, it's excellent. So I'm a huge fan of it. It performs really well. I've hit repeaters 20 miles away from my backyard using that antenna. It's not a do-all, but it's a compromise. But if you are trying to operate the radio in a team environment, as you described, on a few acres of property without obstructions, it's going to do the job just fine outdoors. And it makes the radio carryable. So, when you switch into the vehicle, use your vehicle mounted antenna for that, or you switch into the house, use your roll up J pole. But for carrying it around, I don't think you can beat that. I actually even prefer it on a plate carrier over the wearable, because now I can immediately pull it out and use it in other contexts. But I really love it. And it's the BNC version, so it quick attaches and detaches just like the other accessories.
Yeah, everything cross compatible. I mean, there's so many options here. I love having that. Not to say this is ideal, but let's say in a situation where you broke an antenna, having this, it's going to work with the whole system, even on the base mount.
That's right. And that would work. It looks silly, and but it would work. So I'm a big fan of that, and I think what I run into a lot, it's the same with carrying a firearm or anything, is people have reservations about being more uncomfortable and more burdened. So it's a way to kind of remove that excuse, right? Like you can carry that radio with that antenna. It's better than no radio. It's like the 38 stubby or the 38 snub nose of the radio world. Right. But I'm a big fan. It'll get the job done.
How is the range worked on this? If you were to compare it to the factory antenna that comes with these radios, is it comparable to that?
Oh, the factory antenna, it's hard to say if it is even worth, using as a coffee stirrer or just putting it straight into the trash can. They're a real roll of the dice. Some of them literally are just empty. Like if you open them up, there's no wire in them. They can actually damage the radio if you transmit with them on. So not the ones I sell. They're from a reputable manufacturer, but it's equivalent, maybe slightly. I mean, there's no replacement for length on an antenna. There's no cheating. So it is compromised. But for the purpose of short-range team-based communication, it's hard to beat. And, compare that to the signal stick. It's 19 and a half inches, the one that comes with the radio when fully extended. And even when this is tied in a knot, it's massive compared to the stubby. So you're still going to be annoyed with this if it's in your pocket. So I'm a big fan of it. I love both antennas. If I'm trying to reach out and communicate at distance, I'm obviously going to use my preferred antenna for performance. But different tool for a different job.
That's a nice, very nice upgrade. I didn't realize that about the factory antennas.
Yeah, it's a roll of the dice. Like I said, it's not a universal rule, but they're generally crap.
Interesting. So just I'll give you side by side here. Now, one thing that the guys made me aware of this, I wasn't aware of it, but they said that would it be okay to use this in a rolled up configuration like this? Because that makes it a lot more manageable.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine to use it that way. It's not going to perform as well. But there's a lot of antennas that take, in the HF world, you can get what's called a ham stick that's designed to work on 40 meters, which is a really long antenna is usually required. And it's on a 48-inch fiberglass pole. The way it works is it wraps around that pole. It coils. And so it's a compromise, but it does work. And this is a similar idea. So it's not going to perform as well as a perfectly vertical 19 and a half inch whip, but it's going to perform okay. So there's no free lunch in radio, though. There's always a consequence when you make things more convenient, beyond like battery technology, especially with antennas. There's no free lunch.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I just these are all things that I didn't even know. I wouldn't even begin. I didn't even get into the weeds with antennas. That's a whole nother discipline on itself, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is a whole hobby in and of itself, especially with HF, the long distance type communication. It's a blast, but it's part of what we do with this kit, right? Like if you were to order everything in the kit that comes just with the ProHo package, it's actually 7 different places that I source all the components that go into that kit. Not only would you have to order them all separately, but you also need to know which one to get and which one's better. Not many. There's no other antenna on the market that rolls up like this for a handheld. I think you need to consider that the price, what it supports, that it's made in the USA, all of that. But it's a superior product. I just love that it coils up like that. It has no memory, so it doesn't kink or immediately goes back to straight when you uncoil it. It's just a fascinating product. They actually use this in orthodontics, that same wire.
Yeah. Well, it's tough. It's very high quality. Just the connectors and everything. It's immediate. When something's good, you can just feel it. It has a certain,
Yeah,
just has a certain
absolutely.
But, well, I think we should probably wrap it up. We could go on and on. There's multiple, even more accessories.
Yeah.
There were some options. I thought this one. I'll just finish with this. This was kind of fun as far as a field expedient kit, as you called it.
Yeah.
This antenna was quite interesting here. Just real briefly, what is the story of this guy here?
That's called a roll-up Slim Jim. Electronically, that antenna looks like a big J or a big C. So it's actually 2 parallel wires that are connected at top and bottom, and they have a notch on one side about halfway through. So electronically, that antenna looks very different than it appears. And what it gives it is resonance on both 70 centimeter and 2 meter. So your typical ham bands, it's going to work on VHF and UHF really well. But the amazing thing about it is its portability, right? So you've got a 16-foot feed line plus the antenna that roll up into a cargo pocket size. So for hiking, camping, any kind of adventure sport, having one of those, you can throw that up into a tree and reach places. Height makes might with antennas in this world, at least. So if you're in an emergency and you need to be able to communicate at distance, you might not be able to do it without that antenna or without climbing physically up higher, up a mountain or up a tree. So this does the climbing for you, gets your signal out further, and that might be really important to you.
It would be. There was a guy last winter, I think it was in Oregon, that drove up into a snowy road, got stuck, couldn't get out, no cell signal. He didn't have a radio, but he had a cell phone. What he did was he sent a text, but it wouldn't go out because he didn't have a section or a connection. He taped his phone to a drone and launched a drone up in the air where it finally connected, got his message out, and he was recovered from that by getting that elevation. So that's a perfect example. What was kind of cool about this, I knew immediately what it was when you sent it because I used a similar type of system for when you're topping trees. If you need to
arborist throwaway, right?
Small sandbag that we throw up with a small line and then pull up a heavy line with it. So the kit that Evan put together was that this enhanced antenna with the coax, and then this is a weighted bag. I don't know. It's got maybe some steel in there or something heavy.
Rebar. Yeah, it's just rebar. Yeah.
And a paracord where you would hook this on this loop, swing that up. I could get that 50 feet up in a tree after with a couple of throws. And now you can pull this antenna up, connect it to your 3 radio kit, and that might make the difference.
That's right. Yep. And those are made by a different guy, Andrew Smersek of Combat Art Training. He builds those bags for me and lots of other cool stuff. That was his idea. We looked for the cheapest way to get a heavy weight but it's Cordura, so it's gonna hold up. It's not gonna tear on you if you rub it across branches or something. But it's a solid, I think, 12 ounces, and it's not steel shot. That would cost 3 times as much, but it's a great way to get some nice weight up into a tree. That's what you need to throw something up. If you don't have that, find something heavy, tie your rope to it, but you need something heavy to get that line up high.
Yeah. Well, here's a product idea. Have him put a piece of Velcro on there, and this can double as our counterweight for our night vision.
Yeah. No, that's a cool idea.
Well, this is fantastic. I had no idea how much thought was going to go into this, and I knew it was going to be good. I've been talking to the guys. I trusted everyone, but when it showed up just to see the attention to detail, the importance on sourcing things made by real Americans, people that that you have relationships with. I mean, to know that I'm buying something that there's going to feeding someone's family that's making a living wage, that has a value to me. That means a lot. And a lot of guys, the first comment, whenever you offer anything or you're reviewing something, the first comment that comes up, well, is it USA made? Everyone wants it. Everyone demands it. Well, here it is.
Pay for it.
It's going to cost a little bit more, but you're going to know what you have. You're going to have the best gear that we can source.
That's right. And it feeds my family too. This is the primary income from my family, and my heart and soul's gone into putting the kit together. And I want to help people, but I also want to make a living. So I appreciate the ability to do both of those things at the same time.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. And the work that went into this, it's awesome. I have the fizz all over again, and I've already seen it.
There you go.
So we'll close with this. If one of the guys, the middleman, could throw up the landing page, can you give both of those real quick, Evan?
That's right. ProHoRadio.com, PROHO Radio.com, or RadioMadeEasy.com has my entire catalog. And you'll see the product. The patch is on there, so we did put a picture up of the patch today. Really cool patch. I think everyone will enjoy that. Give you a good chuckle, and I think that'll be exciting. I have not checked, but I'm sure we're past our 100 by now. We were real close when the stream started, and there is a note there at the bottom. Please understand, past 100, there may be a few weeks further delay to source the nylon gear and some of the other components, but we will get orders filled through Memorial Day. We'll continue taking orders.
So what Evan and I discussed this morning, and all of the stuff we're doing, again, this is not a profit thing for everyone here. What I told Evan when we were talking about putting this together, I wanted it to be good USA made, good stuff. When someone gets it, I want you to immediately understand that you feel like you got your money's worth, and that you know where it's coming from, and you know everything that's going on. I told Evan when he would say, well, how much should we charge and what's a fair percentage? I said, you figure what a fair wage is for you, for your effort, your time, your intellectual effort that's went into this. A guy needs to make a living, and we're grateful that you put this together and took all the guesswork out of it and solved another problem that's a huge problem for a lot of us.
That's right.
Told him when he asked me how much I wanted to make, I said, give me 10% of whatever we make. And I'll tell you, the majority of that's going to roll back in is I'm going to feed kits back to friends and folks that were involved in this and helping out. This is not about me making money. I have enough on my end. I do my own thing. This is about making something available to you guys that's good quality, that you can trust. It's going to have people behind it, that if you have a problem, you're going to be able to get it fixed. You're going to have someone that you can talk to and get answers to. That has a value. And so we're just going to be very clear when we offer this stuff. If we do things in the future, you guys are going to know exactly what's going on. There's no one here cutting a fat hog. This is providing jobs for people, and it's providing something that you guys need, that I needed, and I'm grateful for it. And I think that it's more than reasonable at the price. So what we're going to do is we were going to cap it at 100. I left that number up to Evan. I said, what can you realistically produce? There's a lot of effort that goes into this. The antennas are handmade. The bags are being stitched in the US. All that stuff takes time. There are 7, as he said, is sourced from 7 different locations to put this together.
That's right.
That means something. So what we're going to do is, instead of stopping it at the 100, we're going to run this until the end of, was it Memorial Day? Is that this coming weekend?
That's right. I think Monday is the holiday, so we'll run it through the holiday.
And we'll make that available. So whatever comes in above that 100, we'll honor that. Now, the delivery date of the 6 to 8 weeks, was that what it was?
That's right. We might push past that on the surplus orders, but we'll work hard not to go past it, but can't make any promise.
The first 100, we'll stand by that
Right.
delivery time. And
Right.
also, I was only going to make 100 patches available. This will be the very first ProHo patch that we've done that will be included with the kit. And we've got the Velcro on the front. And what I'd like to do, we've opened that up. We've had the artwork done by local members and such. So that's been kind of a fun procedure, but you'll
That's
get
cool.
that very first patch. And once those are gone, those are gone. We'll never run those again. And if we do a second radio kit, or we've got some different things in the works, we'll offer a new one. So if you'd like to get in on that, that will be exclusive to you guys, and we'll keep that open. We're going to run that beyond the 100. So if you order before Memorial Day, from what I understand it, we should be able to get you the patch and everything, the whole kit. It'll be the same for everyone. Is that right, Evan?
That is, yep. Everybody will get a patch. We'll order more if we need them, but we won't run them again after that.
Right. That will be it. So this whole kit, it came out. What did we come at? It was right about $500, correct?
That's right. And worth noting, you were transparent about your percentage, just so everyone knows. You can not order all those components for $500. I
Right.
basically make my money on the volume discount that I get by taking on the risk of buying this stuff by the pallet, and by having relationships with people that you don't have relationships with. You can't buy that pouch you're holding if you don't buy it in this kit. It doesn't exist. So
Right.
that's
And that's
kind of the
cool.
deal. The full
That's cool.
retail price on everything is about $500. If you were to go source it all, you'd have the pain of buying it from 7 places and fixing it and programming it yourself. If you don't want to do that, the kit is basically the easy button.
And if you come out here when we get the open house going, or the events, then we'll be able to be on the same frequency with the ProHo channel, right?
That's right. Can't beat that.
So I thought that was kind of a nice touch. I appreciate that. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, yeah, that's it. There's your 3 radio kit. So just to kind of finalize it, we have the 3 Bofangs. We've got the quarter turn adapters. I always forget the terminology. What are these referred to as?
BNC.
BNC connectors, which are going to make it cross compatible with probably the majority of antennas and accessories. The extended batteries with the USB charging, with all the charging cords in here. The quick start guide, which is came right out of Evan. You can't get that anywhere else. We developed that. What else do we have? We have the USA made bag. We have the USA made radio pouch, which is the best radio pouch I've ever seen. That we work with lots of different accessories. Goodness, you could probably put a magazine in there if you had to.
Yep.
And then the ProHo patch, and that's a nice system, turnkey, programmed for your area, all done. You've got the quick start guide. You don't have to go on the internet. You're good. You've got the comm solution solved for half the price of an AR-15, a cheap one.
That's right.
Really.
Also, I print out the programming for every radio so you'll know what's in it.
Yeah. And you're supporting a lot of good folks too. And I would definitely encourage you, if you haven't subscribed to Evan, how do people find your YouTube channel?
If you go to my website and click on links, I've got all my socials there. But it's Radio Made Easy on YouTube. You just search for that. My handle is actually just my name, Evan Dixon. I wasn't planning on being a YouTube star today, but I will be putting out some content like freemium content on how to use these radios, stuff from my classes. I'll be putting out some stuff in the future. It's just not my focus at the moment, but I'd love to have your subscription if you're looking for that kind of stuff.
I would like to encourage you to put some resources to that. One thing that I've noticed through this whole experience, Evan, is that you have a special ability to make the complex understandable.
Thank you.
And that's something that is not possessed with from radio guys or guys in this field. They tend to like to geek out on the more techie, the better. I would be very encouraged and excited to see what you've learned, problems with radio, problems, confusing things explained in simple videos on your channel that we could go to. That would be a tremendous resource in the future if you ever find time to do that. I would love to support that.
I'll be putting the time in for sure. This is now my full time gig, so I got extra time, but less time than ever, all at the same moment, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah, I
it's a
understand.
fun time. But this is the focus: getting these kits built for the next few weeks. It will literally be all I work on and all my family works on to get these physically put together, programmed, packaged, shipped, mailed out to you guys. I intend to call every customer and thank you and answer any questions you might have. I appreciate this. You guys are blessing me, and I hope you're blessed for your blessing.
Well, I sure do appreciate that. And just as just a little insider information here, I've got a couple more super chats. I'll pick these up last before we go. I don't. There's nothing concrete here, but I've really enjoyed working with Evan and the good companies, from the antennas to the nylon and stuff. I would be very excited. I have some ideas. Evan has some ideas. This really came about because there was you guys asked for it. I asked for it, and it was a solution. Guys stepped up and made it possible. You're driving the ship here as much as I am. If there's something that you'd like to see in the future from Evan that he could offer, bring his experience to bear, that may fit a need that would be good for a lot of dudes, let us know. We're open to hearing this thing. We were just brainstorming this morning, and again, don't count on any of this. There's nothing in the works, but we thought, well, if this is successful and guys like it and they find this to be useful, maybe we can expand upon this, or we can offer a single radio kit for guys that maybe already have radios, or we've even talked about maybe getting more advanced, a portable repeater. One thing I brought up is it might be a nice option to have modules. Like, okay, this is the 3 radio module. If we wanted to add to this, it would be nice to have an off-grid charging module where we could have a portable or fold-up solar panel that would be sized, and it was something that you could buy that we'd know the charge times, things like that we're open to. So let us know in the comments what you'd like to see, if you have any ideas, how we could improve upon this. Evan moved heaven and earth to source the best stuff. We know where everything comes from, apart from the overseas component, but it's a good solution, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm proud to be able to offer it. And I feel very blessed that God has brought us together to solve a problem that's plagued dudes for a long time, and I really appreciate everything you've done, Evan.
It's an honor to work with you guys, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. I think everybody will be very pleased, and I look forward to hearing feedback and reports back. And like you said, I'm a problem solver by nature. I love a good challenge. So if you have something that, even if it's not radio related, but a product we could jam ideas on, I'd love to be a part of that process. And I think we got a lot of potential to make life better for people.
Yeah, I agree. Wonderful. We have we'll do one last super chat from our friend Kyle B. Shout out to you, Kyle. Kyle writes, would it be possible to create a repository of all the programming created for other Wranglerstar members we could access when traveling? I'm not going to weigh into that. You get with Evan on that if that's something he wants to take on. That sounds like a big time commitment. It would be cool, but I'll leave that up to him. But once again, just finally before we close, ProHo Radio. What was the landing page?
ProHoRadio.com.
ProHoRadio.com. Jump in there. You've got till Memorial Day. Go over to his site, and let me get that too. I should have wrote all this stuff down.
That's okay. RadioMadeEasy.com is my business.
RadioMadeEasy.com, where you're going to have the accessories, some of the accessories that we shared. But this is awesome. I really appreciate your time, and I couldn't be happier. It just has really solved the problem that I had. It's one less thing for me to worry about, and that's awesome.
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you, Cody.
All right. Well, thank you, brother. I sure appreciate you guys hanging out with us. This was a great stream. Had I not been in it, it would have been one of the best ones I've ever watched. Having access to Evan and just his no nonsense explanation of things is I know more about radios than I ever did, and I learned it here in an hour. It's amazing. I really appreciate
That's
that.
great. It's my honor.
Thanks,
Thank
brother.
you.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next stream. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers, and we'll see you guys over there.